I was gonna introduce you, but I guess we're not doing that.
Okay.
It's fine. I'm okay with it.
Hello.
But your commitment to pageantry wasn't there today.
No. Welcome to the first episode of the Apple Box.
Welcome. Last night, Colin and I watched The Hummingbird Project. It's a movie with Jesse Eisenberg.
Mm-hmm.
Came out in 2018. It's on Netflix. We had no idea what it was about. No preconceptions of the movie. It looked decent from the trailer and whatnot. But
his monologues were great. That's what I said from the beginning.
yeah. But
kind of like most of his movies.
Yeah, most of his movies are very much monologue heavy. But the bio of the movie is 1 millisecond could potentially net them millions, even billions. In this elaborate scheme, time is money.
Or is money time?
Money's never time.
Oh.
No, time is money.
Oh, okay.
So, just so you know, the overall goal is there's these large financial companies that are trying to get an edge up on the competition by getting faster connection between the Kansas Electronic Exchange and the New York Stock Exchange.
Yes.
And so it's called the KAS, the Kansas Electronic Exchange, I think,
Association,
which
yeah.
doesn't make sense why it's an A, but it's got Selma Hayek and Jesse Eisenberg. What were your thoughts on the movie? Let's start with the look of it and
Cinematically, amazing. No breathing in the focus. It was perfect every time. It did come out 3 years ago now, but from a camera standpoint, I thought it was awesome because I think geometrically, so everything was on thirds, it was all framed nicely. The lighting on what's her name?
Selma Hayek.
Yes, that was interesting because she had glasses on the whole time.
Yes.
I don't really see glasses too much in movies like that, especially with some of the shots. But
Little note, I'm pretty sure they were blue light glasses because every reflection was blue.
yeah, it was like
in
kind of
them.
purple, a little violet, like marks in it, I guess, in the highlights. But yeah, no, her character was badass,
She was a badass.
but no development.
There was not any development. I have a question. So we were lucky enough to watch it on an extremely nice monitor.
Oh.
It was OLED,
4K
4K
OLED,
OLED.
like 55 inches or something.
Yeah.
It's like a
So,
$2,000
like,
TV.
Do you think someone at home watching it on their computer would have a different opinion of the cinematic view of it or an old plasma screen TV?
Actually, a point I was going to make with that too is I think it'd be really cool because I believe Netflix has now started spatialized audio in some of their films, so it might be added to the list of movies that you can, like, if you watch it on your phone, you have AirPods in, the sound is going to sound really good. But I mean, I don't know.
So I guess for people who don't understand, could you describe spatialized audio a little bit?
I believe our friend Javier could speak to this a lot better, but I believe it's just kind of like essentially 5.1, like Dolby Vision or Atmos, I think. Supposed to kind of mimic that. So like, trying to think of like sounds in that movie because the score was kind of weird.
Yeah, so that was a big thing for me.
But there was some like weird score, like it was kind of like ominous, creepy. So like, you know, you'd hear these little like tinny sounds in the back. But
for me, the score for the like first half of the movie, like all the way up until I'd say, you know, right at the false positive in the storyline, it kind of hit that transition from like this awkward, not really like matching score. There was some times where it sounded like they pulled a score from like the audio library on iMovie. It was really, really bad.
no, it was kind of weird because it didn't really match at least the cinematics at all.
It didn't match the cinematics. It didn't really match the feel of the movie. It didn't
like
match
if I
anything.
muted it and watched subtitles, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, you would have been more in it.
Yeah.
But right when it hits this moment where Anton hits this euphoric moment where like he understands, or eureka moment, and he understands like, oh, this is what I have to do. it hits this song and he's just walking down the hallway bopping and weaving, just dancing, and you're like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Then comes the false negative.
I feel like it made sense with Anton, the other character. His
Yeah.
kind of the generic, what'd you call it?
I called it cinematic Asperger's.
Yeah.
Because it's like an actual medical,
Yeah.
they have those videos where lawyers talk about shows where they, like Suits. They'll talk
Yeah.
about Suits, or doctors talk about diagnosis in films.
Right.
I don't think he was, I can't speak to that, but it's definitely like, it was a point to make it to the audience that, oh, this guy has something to the effect of Asperger's. He has a
Yeah, and that
social
was,
disorder or whatever
What's his
it's
name?
characterized as.
Alexander Skarsgård? I believe that was Anton. But I was looking up on Reddit the spatialized audio, and it's only for the Ultra HD plan. So if you're paying like, how much a month? Like
I think it's up
20
to $17.90
Yeah, like,
something. It's
like about like $18 or something a month. But I guess New Girl was added the other day. So
in
they're kind of
spatialized audio.
Yeah.
So I can be in the loft of New Girl.
Yeah.
This just in. I am now a part of the loft in New Girl. Yes, I've seen every episode multiple times, but that doesn't, take away from the fact that maybe add spatialized audio to The Godfather or
Yeah.
Schindler's List or The Pianist, like a great movie. No, let's add it to New Girl.
But also, are you going to be watching great movies on your iPhone? Or are you going to be watching New Girl on your iPhone?
I watched 2001 Space Odyssey on my iPhone once.
A lot of people.
The
hate
only
you.
time I've seen it.
Really?
Yeah.
Just on
I'm-
your phone?
I actually heard Stanley Kubrick roll over in his grave.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
His weeps came through the ground. And this was
yeah.
before I was a film major, though. This was like the summer before college, before I even knew I wanted to go into film.
Okay.
So I was like,
Was that the first film then? Your first cinematic masterpiece?
no, I don't think so.
No.
I mean, Forrest Gump can be described as a cinematic masterpiece.
Yeah. We were talking about Tom Hanks earlier, how he's like in every film. Because I think
Yeah.
he's like set to be like producing like 3 more, or on production of 3 more films coming out. I think 2 are like on Apple TV Plus or something.
Well, that doesn't he have a contract with them?
I believe so. But yeah.
It somehow feels like they're all doing their best to break up the stronghold that Netflix has on the content like stream. However, I don't feel like that's their main intention. I think their main intentions are to just replace Netflix.
Yeah.
I don't think they're trying to compete with Netflix. I think they're trying to beat Netflix.
Well, they're only using like the best too. Like, I have to look it up, but there was like some series they came out with that's using like I think the Arri like 65 or something. So they're like, all right, we're gonna use the best camera, best lenses on all these sets. Plus, they did the night to day kind of whole film that kind of had behind the scenes of.
Wasn't it like LiDAR?
Yeah, they used LiDAR with like an 800 mil Leica lens or something. But
It's absurd.
yeah, so there's a lot of competition amongst all the originals. Like, everyone has like HBO Max now. There's like Netflix Premium. So I feel like they're all trying to compete with them because they kind of dominated COVID, so hard the last year.
And, just so you guys know, since this is our first podcast and we haven't really
Yeah.
like established what we're going to be doing on here, basically we're going to be doing exactly what we're doing is talk about film, new films, how the whole film industry looks. And the idea is I'm a film snob. So when people ask me if I like a movie, I'm like, yeah, it was good. They're like, how can you say that? That was a cinematic masterpiece. Like, how could you just say Tenet was good? It's the best movie that came out this year. Well, there was COVID, so that was the only movie that came out this year. So of course it's going to be best. But regardless of that, then we have the film slob, Colin, who's more just in the film camera smut of it.
I watched part of it.
Yeah. Colin loves 1917, not because
Just the overall like
The
logistics
story.
of it. It's just
Yeah.
kind of like behind the scenes using like 3 cranes to support one camera through like miles of a ditch.
which is, his thing. He's the techie. I'm
But we're both
the
fresh.
snob.
We're both fresh out of university as of May, so it's kind of our perspective on all the content kind of media going on right now.
Yeah. So going back to the Hummingbird Project, I really liked the story. The story alone was very good. I think it was a strong movie.
Would you watch it sober?
I would.
You did.
I did watch it sober. And I thought it was very good. There were a few things that with it, like you said, Selma Hayek's character development wasn't great. And, you know, I don't think, like, someone brought up to you that the idea of Uncut Gems is the fact that because he doesn't have character development is the reason spoiler alert, he ultimately dies, right?
Right.
So in this movie, we see the inverse of that, where she has no character development and she still wins.
Right.
Right.
And kind of like, I guess, spoiler too, like, you know, Anton, they try to build up kind of suspense with it. And, you know, his character obviously towards the end kind of gets what they were talking about too, where it's like, no, like, you can be put away for this. Like, you know, FBI comes and it's just a whole like federal issue with it.
Yeah. And it's kind of like at the beginning of the movie, they make a reference to David and Goliath, and Jesse Eisenberg so eloquently puts like this: imagine, you know, David walks into the trading floor of Wall Street, takes hit of a slingshot, and takes down Goliath.
Right.
Just on the floor. And he's like, the guy is like, but we're David, right? And he's like, yes, we're David. Of course we're David.
Yeah.
And they made it a point to say David and Goliath doesn't happen anymore. Not in capitalism.
Right.
Which is, you know, however your opinions are towards capitalism, that's definitely, this movie was against capitalism. So
because they said, like, think about the lemon farm. They kept referring to that.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, the lemon farm in general, like other companies, because it's like, what are they benefiting out of it?
Yeah. So
Nothing.
like, what Colin's bringing up is this waitress who's an actress on Letterkenny. She comes up and she asks this dude, Anton, and she's like, hey, you work for the CIA? And he's like, no, I don't work for the CIA. And she's like, because I got a couple buddies with my friend with KGB on the phone, and
Yeah.
they're telling me that you work with the CIA. He's like, no, I'm not. And she's like, so what are you doing? He's like, I can't tell you. She's like, why can't you tell me? He's like, because Vincent says I have to sign an NDA, and everyone has to sign an NDA. And she's like,
and his character's super nice, so he's like pretty transparent with stuff.
yeah, he's extremely transparent. And so she's like, okay, whatever you say, CIA. And he's like, here. And he writes out a contract on a napkin that says she can't say anything or else they'll go to court, and he makes her sign it. She's like, I don't think that'll hold up in court. But what we've learned from business law, thank you, Northern Arizona University.
Yes.
Shout out to Gavin O'Connor.
Yes.
He explained that even that is actually a legally binding contract.
Yeah, it is binding.
It explains the terms, and it has an agreement to terms.
Yeah.
Only thing to make it more binding is a notary.
Get it notarized.
Get it notarized.
Was there any scenes in the movie you thought that like they could have just like removed?
Well, before I get there, I want to explain the lemon farmer thing. So she brings up the fact, he explains how companies can make billions of dollars off of 1 millisecond difference in information received. So she said, he's like, you want to buy what? And she's like, looks around, sees lemons. I want to buy a lemon company. And he's like, okay. And she's like, in Zimbabwe. And he's like, okay. So you want to buy 10,000 or 1,000 shares at $10 of this lemon company in Zimbabwe. If you get that information faster, you can buy it for $9.70 and then
within
sell
like
it
milliseconds.
for $10. Yeah, within milliseconds. You can buy it for $9.70 in Kansas City, sell it in New York for $10, and then you've made $30. And she's like, well, it's $30. And he's like, well, that could happen 250 times a day, or 250,000 times a day. And each one of those that could come out to $400 million a day or something like that. And he just does this math crazy quick. And so she's like, well, what about the lemon farmers? He's like, well, they're not variable in this, because that's his language. He's talking about the math of it all. He's algorithm based. And she's like, yeah, but it still doesn't, what do you mean they're not, they're farming the lemons. What do you mean they're not a variable in this? And so that theme becomes reestablished, because they're thinking they're David versus Goliath, the big financial company. But the real David is the lemon farmers, the people who are so down, you know, and it even brings Anton to say later, this whole system is going to go out of place in 50 years.
Right.
So that's what Colin was explaining with the lemon farmers.
Yeah, and I was just kind of looking it up here too because I believe it was a Netflix original.
Is it?
I'm not sure, not for sure, but yeah, it was like released in 2018, but like box office wasn't even like a million worldwide. It was like 500,000 in the U.S. and there were like 400,000 worldwide. But I'm curious, like in terms of distribution for Netflix, because obviously that's where everyone's gonna be watching it. Where that kind of went, because it's kind of like, you know, why put it in theaters? Comparable to like Tenet, which everything he shoots, it's like, okay, it has to be in theater. Like if it's IMAX or something, it has to be on the big screen.
I mean, Christopher Nolan is a purist.
I haven't seen any of the other, the director, I can't even pronounce his, Kim Nguyen?
Yeah, Kim Nguyen.
Yeah. Have
It's
you
like
seen any of his other
Diane
films?
from BoJack.
Yeah.
It's the same last name.
Have you seen any of his other films at all?
I have not. I thought it was pretty good for first feature or assumable first feature, and I'd like to see more.
I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see more. I again really like the story, and other than Selma Hayek's character development and maybe a few other things here and there, I think it was a very good movie. The only thing that would make it great is, scoring was better and maybe a few less weird moments here and there. But ultimately, at the end, they wrapped it up in a way that's like forgiving, and it's complete. But at the same time, what I really liked about this movie is it's not the normal hero's journey where they travel through the new world and they come out better and then they win.
Yeah.
It was they go through this this new world, changed. They're about to win, they lose, and then the resolution is how they work through that.
Yeah, and kind of each character has its like own like new world too. Like with Jesse Eisenberg, like getting like stomach cancer, going through that whole thing. It's kind of like I have to get this done. So it's kind of like I don't know. They're trying to build suspense a lot, but the music could have complemented the suspense a lot better.
Yeah.
And
then again, I'm a purist as well.
Yes.
You can call me a cinematic Puritan or a directorial Puritan.
And to that point too, with Tenet, like I really wish Hans Zimmer was part of that project, but he was doing Dune.
Yeah.
Which
is that's my top pick for best movie coming up.
Yeah. I need to see that. But that was the music for Tenet was done by Ludwig Göransson. Terrible with names. But yeah, Ludwig Göransson, I believe. But still pretty good. I mean, they used Travis Scott.
I'm pretty sure it was Travis Scott.
Yeah.
Colin. I think Travis Scott made that movie.
But that was, I mean, I thought that was scored pretty well. I mean, especially watching it in theaters. But it would have been interesting to see Hans Zimmer part of that.
Yeah, because I mean, it's
considering
like
all the other films he's done with Christopher Nolan.
Exactly. It's like you see Sicario, right? Where, because you mentioned Dune, Dennis Villanueva did Sicario, and he did it with Roger Deakins, your favorite cinematographer.
Yeah.
But then he comes out with Arrival, and it's a new cinematographer, which is very much in the style of Roger Deakins, but it was still missing that, like, Roger Deakins
I haven't seen
touch.
Arrival either. That was...
I really like Arrival, but at the same time,
and just cinematically, there's probably a lot of, green screen, like, blue screen.
Yeah,
like,
I'm sure it was blue screen. I don't know what they did. The special effects were very good in that movie. The idea is a little shaky. It's like Tenet, where it's kind of like if you don't understand the surface level, it seems like, oh my gosh, this is mind melting, right? Mm-hmm. You understand the surface level, you're like, checks out. For sure, checks out. Like,
right.
The science is there. But if you know that intermediate level to advanced level, it's like, are you kidding me? Like, mistakenly, I told a physics teacher in high school when we used to work on a zip line in Alaska. Mm-hmm. I was driving their tour in, and he's like, oh, I'm a physics teacher in high school. I was like, oh. And he's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, oh, I want to make movies, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, what's one of your favorite movies? And I always try to pitch one of my favorite movies that kind of
More
bridges
recent,
that
I guess, or
no bridges the gap between their interests and mine.
okay.
Like when I met Fratty dude, I'll tell him it's Wolf of Wall Street because I love Martin Scores and Scorsese, who's another purist.
Yeah.
And they're like, yes, that's the best movie I've ever seen in my life. Oh my god, I am the wolf.
Right.
You know, so I tried to bridge that gap by saying, oh well, because it is, and it's another Christopher Nolan, Interstellar, really good movie. Because like, I mean, that scene where Matthew McConaughey is watching that video of his kids growing up,
Yeah.
and he's just crying, and it just holds on him.
That was one of the more recent movies that actually like could get an emotional response.
Yes.
You know, I wasn't crying, but
I might cry now.
yeah.
Actually, fun fact: I've never cried in a single movie watching it.
I've shed a tear.
Not
too.
even Marley and Me. Not even Titanic.
So you're a monster.
I'm a monster. I'm a
Okay.
psych. I'm Dexter.
Yeah. You brought up Sicario though too, because I was gonna say with that the lack of audio kind of helped too, because
Yes.
there was like parts where, what was it? That scene where, God, what was it? That one guy that she like trusted or whatever, kind of at the bar, I think, was at her place, and like this whole ordeal
Towards
kind
the
of
end,
happened.
it's
It was,
like the last scene.
Yeah, it was pretty quiet, but if they use that in the Hummingbird film, for certain scenes,
Yeah,
like,
they close it out the same
not,
way.
Yeah.
Not exactly the same way.
Right.
And you should check it out. You should check out this movie. It's a very good movie.
Yeah.
But you know, Dennis Villanueva, who's doing Dune.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like that partnership he had with Roger Deakins. Goes in like, and then lost that when he had that gap in Arrival. When you talk to someone who's just a common consumer of film, they're like, oh yeah, no, it was an amazing movie, mind melting. But then when I brought it up to one of my teachers in school, he's like, ugh, that movie, that's terrible.
Right.
I didn't like that movie. And I was like, what?
And I'm
And then-
usually not like analyzing from like a writing standpoint either. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we talked about with like Marvel, it's like visually it's just stunning and you could watch it and it's just like, you know, attention grabber every 3 seconds,
And
changing shots.
Especially with Marvel, because that's where they have a formula and they can insert any piece because it's Disney, it's a conglomerate. They literally have a formula. They have this,
Yeah.
you know, insert Russo brothers, take out Russo brothers, insert whoever did Guardians of the Galaxy, blah blah blah.
Right.
And they even made that over the way. You know, they started with Iron Man and they started doing other ones and learned their lessons along the way. That's why we see Thor Ragnarok basically being Guardians 3.
Which, by the way,
Bridge the
written
gap.
and directed amazingly.
Yeah. And so what my point was with Sicario and Dennis Villanueva and Roger Deakins is you saw that gap in Arrival.
Right.
And that's what you saw in Hans Zimmer being out of Tenet, where it's like this new guy, this new thing, and they're working out the details. It's kind of like another example is Quentin Tarantino has been over the years making all these movies with all these actors, and that's why we see
Just
Leonardo
A-list,
DiCaprio in a lot of his films, a lot of Scorsese's films, because once that piece works, they decide to keep that piece. Where like Alfred Hitchcock, even going all the way back, loved what was his name? James
Jimothy,
Jimothy, Jimmy Stewart, I think.
maybe.
But he loved him, and so he was in the main character in a lot of his films, North by Northwest, Vertigo. You know,
Right.
You know the guy.
Yeah.
Kind of talks like Sean Connery, but he's not.
Yep.
And so once a purist director has that like character, that person they know they can rely on, they keep it. So Hans Zimmer being out of Tenet was definitely like a loss, which is why I really like Dune.
Yeah.
Because it has Dennis Villanueva, great director. It has Hans Zimmer, amazing score. If you don't know, Hans Zimmer did Inception and Dark Knight with, and Interstellar? Yeah, and Interstellar
Yeah.
with Christopher Nolan. That's why it was weird he wasn't on Tenet.
Right.
But huge fan of the Dune book series. I think it's a book series. I'm going to
Yeah,
look
it
offset
is.
for a second. Is it a book series?
Dune?
Yeah. It's a book series. I cleared it with the studio audience.
Yeah. Oh, the book's so much better.
But it's exciting.
And it's got like kind of like these actors that are kind of bridging the gap between like B-list, A-list that are kind of like upcoming. It's got that young guy, I forget his name, but it's also got freaking Aquaman.
Yeah, Jason Momoa.
Yeah, Jason Momoa. No beard. But
Well, then what's the point?
yeah.
Ladies, chime in. Look at the bottom. There's a website you can go to, www.isjasonmomoa hot with or without the beard.com /.org.
/Aquaman. But and you were talking about Ragnarok too, because writing wise, I've loved like Taika Waititi.
Yes.
And he did like the Wilder People. What was it? Yeah, Hunt for the Wilder People and Ragnarok, which he did first, and then like obviously Jojo Rabbit too.
Yeah, I still have to see that movie.
You haven't seen Jojo Rabbit?
I haven't seen Jojo Rabbit. I'm gonna be
That
honest.
one's pretty good. Just because again, it's kind of like one of those. I mean, it's a whole satire, so it's like funny, and then like towards the end, you're like, oh shit, like.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Hunt for the Wilder People too. That was on Netflix. I believe it came out around the same year as like Hummingbird.
I have not seen that movie either. Who's
That
in
one's
it?
really good too. But like you wouldn't recognize really too many of the actors, which is what I like too, because it was really well done. But it's not like Tarantino where you're seeing like Brad Pitt on his recent film, whatever, and like all these big names.
Cliff Booth.
Best story in the movie
Is it
though.
Cliff Booth?
Cliff.
Matt? What's his name? God, I'm just blanking. The
Once
best
Upon a Time in
character for Once
Hollywood.
Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Cliff
Yeah.
What?
Booth.
Booth. Okay, yeah, I was right.
Yeah.
This is why we have people here. They're literally just on their phones.
We're in a
looking
live
things up.
studio audience.
So, Hunt for the Wilder People. Okay.
You should see it though.
Yeah. Who is that?
Plus, the one thing I will say about the Hummingbird one too is like it was under 2 hours. Felt a lot longer. It was pretty like drawn out in terms of
Yeah.
the scenes too, because again with the whole monologues and stuff. But I was surprised it was under 2 hours.
And the thing is, what I think that really gives Kim Nguyen a great nod to is even though it's under 2 hours and it feels drawn out, this is a process that's done over months and months of time. They're trying to create one continuous line from New York to Kansas.
Right.
And they have like 90% of it, 95% of it like
Fiber
accounted
optic.
for, but then they have to get through the Appalachian Mountains. And there's one point where they have this butting heads of, oh, did I disconnect?
good.
No. They have this butting heads of Amish culture and
Yes.
the overwhelming dominant electronic age. And he's explaining to them it's going to be much faster. And they're like, we don't care about fast. As a horse-drawn carriage passes
Yeah.
him. And he's like, well, but like technology, he's like, we don't believe in the advancement of technology. He's like, but it's going to be under your land 6 feet. And he's like, well, that doesn't do anything for me. He's like, I don't know what to do.
And that kind of came back to that whole like Lemon Farm
Yeah.
idea that I kept talking about.
It's
Where
a-
it's like it's
Repetition of the theme.
yeah.
Right? The theme is, there are subworlds within our world that are oppressed by the overwhelming majority.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, I always find it cool when I apply my school learning to life. So when you look at the communication theory of muted group theory, which says that the marginalized are marginalized because in a democracy, the main group, the dominant group, the majority makes the decisions, which puts people on either end of the minority at a loss because these bigger groups make the decision. So like they drill under their land 100 feet because mineral rights is a thing, and you lose.
Yeah, you can buy land on land, but it's underneath.
Yeah,
what is it,
like-
like 100 feet or something?
Yeah, once it goes under 100 feet, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
If you have the mineral rights.
Right.
Which is a cool thing, but it's also a crappy thing because it's
Because they bought a
crazy.
plot of land near it and dug underneath, and they were just like, okay, so we can't do anything.
Yeah, and another thought I had from that movie, a great movie, very similar idea, is There Will Be Blood.
I've not seen that either.
And I know you haven't seen it, but
Yeah.
like again with that movie, how it works is there's a scene in it where he explains that there's drainage because he bought every tract of land around this one parcel of land where oil was actually seeping to the surface. And the guy tries to sell it to him in the end, and he can't because all the oil's gone because he's like explaining, you you have a milkshake.
Yeah.
And
I've seen that on
I
YouTube,
have
the
a
scene.
straw that goes all the way across the room
Yeah.
and goes into your drink. I drink your milkshake. You know, like that
Yeah.
that amazing scene is explaining the same idea where it's like there is a force underground. There's a whole law underground that surface dwellers don't understand.
Right.
And so with the undying quest of Jesse Eisenberg, it had echoes of that movie, There Will Be Blood. And I love that movie. That movie was great.
Right.
Daniel Day-Lewis, just amazing. I loved that movie. So that is my version of a great movie. This was a very good movie,
Right.
which you can see it was an inspiration for this movie.
Yeah. No, I mean, and in terms of just, you know, as soon as I saw like the thumbnail, I was like, okay, Jesse Eisenberg, like, you know, his character throughout, you know, other films, like it was like, Zuckerberg, like, look at him. It was just, I don't know. I don't see like too much of a change in character too, because he's very fast paced with dialogue.
Yeah.
Which worked really well because like he was in the ambulance on the phone, speeding through, still putting like business and kind of money over his overall physical and like mental health.
Well, if you want to talk about the Christ metaphor in film, he's the Christ figure. So when he finally has to come to terms that he's lost this battle, and he goes into that operating room, he's like, I'm going to a meeting, got to go by, and tried to ensure the whole project
Right.
for 200% and make a bunch of money after he had already found out that there was a better system in place.
Yep.
Sketchy is the last bit of that character, right? So that character dies at that point, and everything from there on out is his new reborn self. So that's he's the Christ figure in this film, I'd say.
Okay.
Because he has that death, resurrection, and new world.
Right.
On top of that, another thing I thought was very cool about the film was I just had it, I forgot.
Chip has the metaphors and the poetic speech. I just bring the ignorance and unknowledged point of view.
I'm just analytical. That's
Yeah.
it. I try to be.
Yeah.
Like I tell everyone,
academics in
I
film.
think I'm high concept.
I mean, look at your shirt. It's a complicated guy.
The slob and
Just a
the
simple,
the schnob.
you know. Yeah, great. Well, cool. Our light went out, so mine just. So I
Damn.
feel like that's towards the end, but this is our first episode of the Apple Box, so I hope you guys enjoyed.
We have to.
you have
We
anything
should
else
probably
to add?
decide what movie we're going to watch next.
Yeah, what movie? Well, you should definitely watch Little People.
But like,
I need to watch
There Will Be Blood.
There Will Be Blood. Yeah, I
Oh.
want to see him scream milkshake.
Oh my god! Talk about lack of character development.
Plus, I haven't really seen Daniel Day-Lewis, so
Talk about
And you see
lack
how
of
crazy
character
he is on
development. He
screen.
has such little character development, and in that he has character development.
amazing.
I could talk about that movie for way too long.
Sweet. Well,
But
anything
yeah,
else?
I think that's it. I think thank you to our live studio audience.
Yes. We got Tanner
They're
and
asleep
Matt
back there.
Yeah.
We just woke them up.
Yeah. We'll add the clapping in post.
We just need a sign that's like clearly on screen that says applause.
Yes. Like
Laughter.
Now. But yeah, we'll be doing like an episode every week, you know, coming out, I think, every like Monday probably. So
Yeah.
we'll be talking about films, original content, stuff we've seen. Again, I'll bring that.
But we can't also make promises like
No.
that. So like once every 6 weeks, maybe we'll possibly have
We got other things to do.
Something.
Very important, you know. Yeah. Business.
Fortnite. I got to be playing Fortnite at least.
Yeah.
How often would you say? What would your number be? How often should I play Fortnite?
Like a week? Like how many?
You can make any unit of measure.
At least 1 cup of Fortnite a day.
Yeah.
One cup of Fortnite a day
Yeah.
keeps
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
haters away.
Yeah. And all the money is going towards new skins anyways.
Yeah,
so we're
yeah.
just buying
Just straight V-Bucks. It's
Some Mandalorian
it's the new
skins, Terminator.
cryptocurrency. So if you're paying for anything,
Yeah.
buy it in V-Bucks.
Yeah. Well, sweet.
Well, yeah.
All right.
We should make this a little bit more awkward.
Yeah. Bye.